Okay, guys, I'm really excited today to chat with Marta Checko, who is a business strategist and embodiment coach. Hello, Marta. Thank you for being here today.
Since we're doing the rolling R, hello and buenos dias, Andrea. Nice to talk to you. Nice to see you. Such a great opportunity for us to connect and chat today. I'm excited to see what we have to share with a collective or a group of people that are and is your audience.
Yes, me too. And that was a beautiful R rolling. I know you said you are from Poland. Yes, so you have the skills.
I am a first generation Polish American, so born in New York City, actually. Both my parents immigrated from Poland, so I do a rolling R. I am fortunate enough to speak a few other languages, including Spanish, so my rolling R does come in handy.
So I live in Spain as an American, and my partner, he has a hard time with the rolling of the R's, so he tries. But anyhow, that is neither here nor there. What we're actually here to talk about are some really fun things about pivoting and digital nomading and growing your business and all sorts of fun like this. So to kick this off, why don't you share a little bit about your personal story? Because I think that leads really well into the things that we want to talk about today.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Marta Checko or Marta Checko, former New Yorker raised and part-time digital nomad. After graduating and studying in the US, I had graduated and worked in higher education nonprofit. And I really evolved into a multi-passionate creative solopreneur, I call it, as a creative curator of expression. I love to express myself either through writing or photography, and really have the conversations that maybe we're not having on a day-to-day basis, and not talking about the things that we immediately tell our best friend, like what happened, but sort of those deep things that have really led us to a transformation. So I am a passionate Taurus with a Virgo moon and a Libra rising. So basically, at the end of my day, I just want a solid foundation, organic harmony, and ease around me. I want to be comfortable. I describe myself as a visionary, balancing the analytics and details of really business operations, programs, and projects, while also embracing this exploratory and experimental mindset and to embody the joy that life has to offer. Obviously, this hasn't been my journey from the very beginning. It's definitely evolved and continues to evolve. But I'm really here as someone to share my time with other entrepreneurs and my favorite soulpreneurs. So those who are really soul-led and heart-guided, the creators, dreamers, and visionaries that are just looking for an extra lending hand or someone to support them through coaching or mentorship in their business or the business they're dreaming about and building. And I support them through micro offers, to sort through some of the chaos that they may be feeling in strategy sessions, as well as sort of do with you, project planning and strategy implementation, while building out sort of the systems to keep them streamlined, organized, and living their best life.
This is very cool. So what I love is that you have combined seemingly opposite sides or like very different sides of the coin or of the brain, like the left-handed side or the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain together to really marry them into a really cool business that seems to be take everything that you love and puts it together. So I think this is really amazing. And it's funny because you combine them. I do similar things, but I kind of separated them out a little bit. So in terms of what I do in my business. But how did you come to this place where you were like, oh, this is what I want to focus on?
A lot of self-work.
Yeah.
I think it really all started with, after I made some choices to perhaps leave what I was doing originally, sort of professionally. I had quite an imperative motive to take some time away. And I call it a personal sabbatical without an end line or an end date. I really needed to take some time to sit with myself in being able to identify what I felt on a daily basis, what I wanted to feel, how I wanted to feel it, what I needed to do, and then recognize maybe even the natural gifts that I had, the natural talents, what came easily to me, what brought me joy, what like made me tingly when I was doing it, just because it was like interesting or curious or something I already wanted to do more of. And then also, what else did I want to learn? I really focused on what it is that maybe something that came naturally to me, but I could learn a little bit more of, or maybe what came naturally to me, but to someone else and how I could share that knowledge. You had mentioned like sort of opposite ends of things, and I've always been kind of opposite ends of things. Like I was a competitive swimmer while also like a classically trained pianist. I grew up like studying Mandarin in school and then abandoned that to become a German major in college. Like I've always been doing sort of the like, I'm on one path, but then I'm going to gear this way. So if anything, I really try to encourage others to sit with themselves in really tuning into what it is that lights them up. Figure out the details later. But if you have sort of that groundness in, maybe you don't even know what your mission is in life or your purpose. You can't identify that. But if you can identify like, this really brings me joy in this moment, or I really love doing this every single day, or like, it's really important for me to make sure I have time to spend with my family or my friends, and sort of identifying those values, those traits, even those habits to be with yourself, everything else comes much, much easier because you kind of lay out the framework for it.
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that I also do with my clients. So I love talking to people who are doing similar foundational framework, because it's something that if you don't do, you're going to go down these really random paths and end up dissatisfied or kind of like, wait, why am I doing this? Or letting your business or life or whatever it is lead you. And in the end, it's going to be something that you're just not really into. And you're going to be like, wait, like, was I in a fever dream? Like what was going on here? How did I end up here?
Right.
So you had said something that when you were creating your own business, you took a sabbatical of sorts. So a lot of people, I imagine, are listening and say, okay, well, I can't just drop everything and go into the middle of the forest or the jungle or whatnot and,
too literal.
Right. And figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So for people who are like, okay, I can't drop everything, what do you recommend for them to do in order to create that space, in order to get in touch with themselves so they can actually feel into what they want to do?
Absolutely. Obviously, I recognize that there's a level of privilege that came from taking that time off. I also went through a really traumatic situation. I had a personal injury accident, which I never took any sort of disability or time away from work and really worked through. And that was the years of physical recovery, and not to mention the emotional and mental. So that story aside, or like that aspect aside, I kind of what I mentioned earlier, like what can I do in this moment to move on to the next one? And not even think about, what do I need to do the rest of the day? But like in this moment, is there anything else that I need? Can I give myself that? What is missing? I think we have more power and control. It's power and control than most of us recognize on a daily basis to make ourselves feel better. It's even now that I'm like right now temporarily in the States, there's very much like, oh, it's gonna rain today, because like people look at the weather forecast and they kind of set themselves up for the day. Like I've been living in Costa Rica where most likely it's gonna rain at some point. It might be for 10 minutes, it might be for 10 hours. And like I can't control that. But I can control how I feel like through it all, right? Like I can say like, ugh, I didn't get to do this. I have to like go to the grocery store. Now I'm going to get drenched, or like there's going to be more traffic. Like that's our programming that's saying and making us stick to one version instead of being like, well, the plants need water, like it's been really dry. There are different ways to shift every narrative. And so Yeah, we don't all have the opportunity or the chance to maybe go on vacation, a retreat, even a staycation somewhere because we're like so busy in our minds, but we can still pause, ground, take a breath, and really be honest with ourselves. Like, what are we feeling? Where are we feeling it? Like, where is this physically being manifested in our body? How does it make me feel? How would I want this to feel? And embodying what it is that we are really trying to harness.
It's such a good point. So you do not have to drop everything and run away to Costa Rica in order to figure out what it is that you want to embody, what it is that you want to do. It really is just being intentional about it. And maybe it's just taking a walk outside, right? So maybe just
Totally.
stepping away from your desk and just really, like you were saying, like breathing in and grounding down, really connecting and feeling into it. And it's the intentionality, I think, that is just the most important thing. The intentionality and the recognition when you do feel something. So for somebody who said, "Oh, how do I know?" Right? Like, how do I know when like something is happening, and to trust that? I would love to hear your take on that.
So, as much as I talk about feelings and feeling something out right now, I will say, and I really want to preface this, like, I was raised Eastern European, and as much of a stereotype as there is of like not talking about feelings, it is very real. There's, I think overall culturally, there's still a lot of like misinformation. There's a lack of understanding and really a lack of overall implementation in society to support ourselves, right? And so, we really have to find ways to be able to focus on like ourselves first and prioritizing ourselves. And for most of us around the world, like that doesn't come naturally based on sort of what our culture structure dictates or tells us. Right. And so it might have been through my last accident, but it also was due to a previous injury I had 10 years ago, where I learned of a degenerative chronic condition I have in my spine as well. It was so hard to be able to even describe how I was physically feeling, like where the pain was, to whether it be a doctor or a parent or a friend, just trying to get that kind of understanding. And so I have gone on this journey primarily in the last 10 years where I've really been almost hyper focused on trying to identify feelings, like emotional feelings, the physical feeling of something, and how that is perhaps being shown up mentally and how that's being manifested in my body physically. It doesn't come naturally for us to, one, talk about feelings, like the raw feelings that we may be experiencing, like what maybe a certain situation is bringing up to us. And two, we're not taught how to listen and empathize with that for someone else either. So a lot of the times when even we're, trying to like say to someone, I'm feeling, let's bring this to business. Like I'm feeling really frustrated because I'm not able to grow my business. Like I'm stuck with these, whether it's 2 or 20 clients, depending on what your business looks like it's just not moving. Okay, so outside of like the business aspect and like what that means for numbers and like business growth and like your overall revenue plans, whatever it may be, like what is that bringing up for you? And we're never really taught how to talk about that and identify that and then be able to like create something that's like rational out of it. We are just used to having a reaction out of it, right? Like, okay, like maybe I'm feeling fearful because I don't have any clients for next month or next quarter. Okay, like that is a very valid feeling. Like business, like with everything, there's ups and downs. Feelings have experiences, it's up and down. And sometimes it's like in a whirlwind or in a spiral. And we have to learn how to be able to be open to it, listen to others, and find meaningful ways to support each other by recognizing that we are not the same. what we may feel is our own experience, and that is so beautifully unique to us. But being able to like connect with someone about what it is you're feeling and why and how that's happening, I mean, that's really special, and that's not easily available. And it takes personal work to be able to get there. I'm not saying I've finished, I've like, graduated in feelings, but if anything, it's a continuous learning experience. To be able to identify that within ourselves, to be able to sit with those feelings, like really acknowledge, and like before trying to resolve them or move on from them, like really be able to appreciate what's coming up for us.
It's such a good point. And it was something that I also had to develop within myself is this, because I grew up, my coping mechanism was the avoidant one, so my coping mechanism was the, okay, this is not, we'll just keep going. Like, it's fine. And not really stopping and pausing and saying like, okay, like what's going on? Like, let me actually feel it and move through it. And when I started doing that and feeling it in my body, myself, and being conscious of it and saying, okay, I'm going to feel this and I'm going to get to the other side of it, then that's when everything started to shift. And I think that's really powerful.
I, through whether it was therapy or, my own like reading and self-knowledge, I really had to develop like a self-care toolkit or like a toolbox that I still have a note on my Apple Notes, one of many, the Soulpreneurs, like always just having notes in different places. I have one that's called Self-Care Toolkit, and I think it's a list of 20 things that like at any point, if I'm feeling something and I'm uncomfortable and like maybe need a moment, like I can go there and be like, take a breath. It's as simple as that. There's like, take a breath, take a walk, shake it out. So maybe like put on your favorite song, and I have like a playlist of my favorite songs, and I just like click it and maybe I just shake it out. Maybe it's step outside and read a book. It's these simple things that come up that, it's not just resolving the problem to move on to the next feeling. It's being able to sit with it and also soothe yourself, because a lot of these feelings, it's just energy that hasn't been exuded, right? So how can we do it in a way that's healthy and productive and optimized for us? Like, just because I tell you, well, I sit with breath work daily, or, before I start my day, I write in my gratitude journal, and I sit with my tarot cards, or I pull a crystal, like that may not work for you. And that's okay. Right. And recognizing that you have the power and control to be able to sit with yourself, to develop that for yourself, I think is so powerful that sometimes we just don't recognize like what we already have readily available to us.
Yeah, and it's such a good point. And in addition to that, developing this practice also makes you really resilient. Because as we know, having your own business is a whole journey and things happen. And really we all did this because we had a dream. And if we want to realize this dream, and it really takes a lot of conviction, and it takes a lot of growth, and it takes a lot of the self-development work. So it's really important. And because I feel like not this podcast, because my people are my people, but like somebody else who's maybe stumbling upon this might be like, well, why are they talking about these emotions and things? Like it's about the numbers and this, that, but it's not. This is the most important piece. Like this right here is so much more important. That other stuff is easy. The other stuff is like, you can hire that out. You know what I mean? Like
that's
somebody can do that for you. You can't hire this piece out, right? Like you can't hire out the piece of developing this self-care and this resiliency within you, and this ability to feel into what you're doing, feel it through, move past it, sit with it, and then move on to the next thing and be okay and move on to the next, what we're doing. And as we grow, it's going to keep coming up, because we're always growing, and it's going to keep coming up over and over again. So this is what's going to get you to the next level each and every time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And really, I mean, the feelings, I think I mentioned this earlier, feelings are just energy. And a lot of the time they keep us, like if we're not exuding it, if we're not exerting it, if we're not, showing it a way that it can like move through us or with us, then that's how we get stagnant. That's how we start to get stuck. I relate to a lot of soulpreneurs and soulpreneurs who, are so passionate about their business. It's every part of them. It's, I myself, like, I share my affirmations because it's a part of me, and that's how I ground in my business. Sometimes we can get so intertwined that we're inseparable from it, right? And then we get lost in that because we're like, oh, well, this isn't working. What else haven't I done? When we can sort of get onto that downfall end, and then we get up these feelings of limiting beliefs, right? Doubts, fears, that triggers stress, that maybe triggers insomnia, chronic illness, sickness even. How many times do you just get a cold because you're trying to purge through something, right? Like you're trying to work through something and you're just not taking care of your body, yourself. And yeah, your business starts with you because you're the one that's creating it. There's absolutely power in setting boundaries with yourself, emotionally, and for protection and being able to have some level of separation, but it's still your business is going to run how you make it run. If you're sitting here questioning and doubting and saying nothing is working, and you're not open to the possibility of something else spontaneously can happen, well, then nothing's going to happen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It really is this balance of sitting with your emotions and being open to every possibility that's out there, and not not getting stuck. I really like the this is what I like to do. When you're feeling that is the shaking, I really resonate with that. I'm okay, getting that energy and movement out. Animals do that in the wild. Animals
Yes.
in the wild, when they're feeling something, they shake and they move through it. So, and I could see my dogs do that, when there's some anxiety.
Shake it off. Yeah. Yeah. Good shake off. Exactly. I say the same.
So everybody do that. Shake it off. Okay. So I want to transition into something fun. So a lot of people in my world love to, or have this dream or this goal, is to either move abroad or digital nomad or experience life, somewhere else. And that's a big reason. It's this freedom is a big reason why they're starting their business. And you are, as you were saying, a part-time digital nomad. So I am super curious on your end, because for me, I moved. So I moved from the US to Spain, relocated. This is, what's going on, brought the dogs, brought the boy, did all the things. But you were going kind of back and forth and moving around. So I'd love to hear about your experience. It's a balance, right? In terms of planning this travel and doing this and running your business. It's a lot of brain space that's being used up. So I'd love to hear about this.
Well, one thing is I named my one-off 1-hour strategy session simply from my own experience of needing to bring chaos into calm, because I thrive in a certain level of, let's stick with chaotic energy. There's a lot going on. I'm used to that it's almost comfortable. So when it's slow, or when things are too that's part of also being in Costa Rica. Everything is so much slower, right? So one thing is balance.
Yeah.
Pura vida life, exactly. It's yes, a lot of balance, but it's coming back to what is it that I really need right now? I can't, if I'm to be clear, I also moved my 60-pound rescue dog down there. So it's not I'm totally, going back and forth, because it gets really expensive traveling with pets. And if any listeners need help in how to travel with your pet, please reach out to me, because I spent multiple months doing the research and calling, I think, every airline in the US to make it happen.
Oh, girl, listen, we could have a whole podcast episode just on this topic. I know every option and how to move your dogs overseas. Every option.
I considered every option. I thought about driving multiple hours, doing road trips. I didn't know what to do. Yeah, that is a whole podcast episode in itself. But, one thing I really want to harness here is that, yes, we want freedom, we want independence, and there's a lot of unknown. Regardless if you're moving to a new country or if you're just traveling and nomading, there's a lot actually that travel If you don't know about it yet, like parts of yourself that maybe you're not comfortable with or you haven't confronted, oh, you will, you know? If you don't know how you
You will.
work best or like
Yeah.
what environment, oh, you will, you know, like you think you can work from a cafe. No, like you need to know what's the ambience, what's the weather, like what's the temperature, is there Wi-Fi access, like what availability of beverages even are. I mean, I call myself a beverage connoisseur because I have 3 hydration vehicles at all times near me. You know, like the ambience and environment makes a difference and is important. And a lot of the times we can get stuck in trying to analyze all the different things that maybe like we think will happen or what will happen. And kind of like running a business, like whether it's moving abroad, traveling, like I said, nomading, like sometimes you just got to learn to be brought with the flow. There's like only so much planning and organization you can do while also just like enjoying, you know, like when you get through security, you get through your check-in, like you're finally in the plane seat before you take off and you're just like, oh, I made it. Like sometimes it's not that immediate feeling, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. You just have to harness those moments that actually just like bring you that tranquility and be like, I'm doing it. Yeah.
So it sounds like for you, it's a lot of in the moment, just intentionality and being appreciative and just saying, okay, where am I now? What do I need right now? And just being very in tune with that. Is that correct?
I would definitely say that. I mean, I'm a planner beyond planner. Like, I'll have, for any listeners, like, I here have been working and developing, and I created my business on Notion. So, databases and lists and to do lists and pages, like, that's my jam. You know, I'll do the planning, I'll do the research, I will process that with someone, whether it's my partner or a friend, or find any listener to try to, you know, hear me out on something. And then at some point, you kind of just need to put pause on it. Or for me, at least, you know, like I can do all the planning, I can do all the organizing, I do all the research. And then I need those moments where I can be like, oh, what's actually happening right now? Like, where am I going? What is this for? I mean, I get not to be like too existential crises right now, but sometimes you just like need those check in with yourself. And it doesn't have to be a whole 20-minute like breath work session. It can just be, you know, the 2 minutes of like, all right, I'm feeling super frazzled because I still got to make this call. I'm still missing this thing. I got to go pick up things, you know, like the rush before traveling when you got to like, at least in the States, I'll give my routine, like, I got to do at least 3 Target runs. I'm going to go to CVS. Like I got to pick up this medication. I got to pick up this toy for my dog. Like you're just like running around. And then like we can get so amped up and like stressed up. And this is the same in business. Like we can get so amped up and stressed about the next thing that we're doing and what's happening next and like the next project and what phone call we got to prepare for or what email we got to respond to or another message came in. And then at one point you just go, pause. Quiet.
This is such a good parallel. Such a good parallel.
This is me talking about my life. This is really how I do it because it's so easy. And this is really why I work with other solopreneurs and those small business owners that really run their own businesses because I understand how it feels to want to do it all and not knowing how to make it happen and make it feel easy. You know, sometimes you just want to do all the things. You want to start a podcast, but you're writing a newsletter and then you're also like doing this pitch and you're still rewriting your business plan. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about my own to-do list, right? Like there's a million things going on, but there's a reason for it.
Yes. Yes. And I wanted to pause on this for 1 second just to give a little like logistical tips in here because I like the balance also of both of the things. I will say that I have a lot of things going on and I'm sure that you'll agree with this. What I do is I do a thing, I make a system out of everything and then it flows so much easier. So instead of having 15 balls in the air that are like halfway done, I focus on the one thing, I make a system and then that gets enveloped into my process, and then I move on
Absolutely.
to the next thing. So like
Yeah.
this, like having a podcast, by the way, in case you didn't know, is a gazillion steps. Like it's not just, oh, we pop on and record the thing and edit it and like it's chill. Like no, there's a lot that goes on in the background of having a podcast, but I love it. It's my favorite thing. So like when I started this, there is a whole system. So like we don't drop any balls, everything is good. So it's just one like super logical thing that I just wanted to pop in here to throw out to everybody, because it's also similar with traveling. You know, it's like, okay, what do I do when I want to go somewhere? Right? Like I have a trip coming up to Switzerland next month. And so I have like an unconscious almost, but a system for when I have a trip coming up and what I need
I
to
love
do.
that.
And it just makes everything so much easier. And
Yeah.
the other thing that was a cool thing that came up for me when you were talking was when you were talking about just like, okay, you do the thing, you plan, and then you take a breath. And everybody has gone somewhere, has gone on vacation. Have you ever traveled and you almost forget to appreciate what you're doing in the moment because you're thinking about tomorrow and the next thing you have to plan and the next thing? This is a really cool parallel with business, right? Because this is what we're talking about. This is what happens in business. Oh, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, without like really appreciating where you are in that moment. No, it was
Yeah.
just not brilliant. I see you nodding. I'm like, oh yes,
Yeah.
such a good analogy.
I'm so happy to hear that. I really shared this. I worked with a client. I think it was within 2 months ago, and without sort of disclosing too many details, she was like feeling really overwhelmed and stressed because she wanted to get X amount of things or like needed all these responsibilities done because she was going to carve out time for the first time to take 6 weeks off. As a small business owner, like within the first 3 years of your business, like that's an achievement to be able to do, to be like, I'm taking 6 weeks completely off of my business. And, we were like talking about, why this overwhelm was, or seeming this overwhelmed or this stress or this frustration almost. And, I kind of said to her, hey, do you remember when you started this business or even a year ago, like what you were dreaming about in terms of clients or maybe like the type of work you were doing? And she was like, yeah, I like really wanted to have like 2 to 3 retainers and like work with these types of projects. I'm like, and so without trying to, call you out, like what is your workload like? We had already discussed sort of like her overall, like who she was working with and at what capacity. And I was like, sounds pretty much like what you're kind of doing now. How cool is that? And she goes, yeah, I didn't even realize that. And I mean, I can do that for myself, like in a self audit of my own business. Like I can be frustrated that like, right now my website is still under development. I'm still reworking some things. I have other creative projects like waiting for me. And then I can think about like, 2 years ago, I didn't even like have an idea or know where I would be guided. And how cool is that? And it's so hard to take those moments when, we can easily sort of be amped up by the emotion of like wanting to do it all and do it right, because obviously like we're trying to do our best. And then having that sort of like reflection back, kind of like, I finally made it to the plane, like I have my seatbelt on, like I'm ready to go. Take me.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. And I'll share with you something else that came to mind that was related is, so I had a point where in my business, which was what led me into pivoting, where I was super burnt out. So I was an OBM with all these one-on-one retainer clients and making all the money, but it was a lot. And then when I first started to integrate coaching, I was just like, go, go, go. No, because I wanted to shift away from that so bad. But everything I was doing at that time was not that it wasn't intentional, it was, but it was like, I had this to-do list, like, let's go. I just want to release this thing and, like, let me release this program. Let's go. And like, not sit with it and, like put a lot of pressure on it because I had shifts that I wanted to make. that wasn't the right, quote unquote, the correct energy to be in. And since that point, and why I'm so passionate about helping people to pivot and grow their business in this way, is because I've done it every wrong way and I've done it the right way. Right. And it really is this idea of, okay, let's be intentional with it when we're shifting things, when we're growing. What steps do we need to take? Take a breath. Let's step back. Let's really look at the big picture. What are we trying to achieve? And actually acknowledge and accept that it took me years, literally years, to realize that oh, it really is a marathon and not a sprint, because there's always going to be 15 things that you need to do. And it all seems very urgent, but it's not urgent.
Yes.
It's not urgent if you're going to cause yourself to burn out, if you're going to, do all these things and put your own health at risk. So it's really this balance and this intentionality throughout everything that is so important to embody in your business, and just really accept that and flow with it and have fun along the journey. Have fun on the airplane ride.
Have fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you're in first class. Maybe you're in the back in economy, which is fine, but you're still on a plane. How cool. You're still going somewhere. I don't know. Maybe an engineer listens to this and can explain how an airplane works. I finished high school, I graduated college. I don't understand, but I will sit in that seat, and if they pass me a Diet Coke, I am taking it, I am enjoying that. And I absolutely just agree to that point. It is the marathon, whether someone's an athlete, and if you're someone who's not running, running a marathon tomorrow is going to be really tough and not advisable for you. A lot of the times have to compare. Sometimes I compare against myself, because I have to remind myself who I am. I can get so frustrated in my business. Yes, everything is the most urgent and should have been done yesterday. Right? I think of myself, even 10 years ago, writing. I wrote a thesis, and actually I wrote it in German after studying abroad in Germany, because I did that for a year. And I remember wanting to just be done with the chapter, or be done with this section, or be done with this. And I remember having these conversations with friends, even then being I just wish I could be done and move on. But it's never done, because I was still learning, still reading, still researching. Something else came up. And again, it's just back right now, 10 years later in my business, oh, email marketing, yeah, I have the basics, but there's something new coming up. Oh, this feature has been released, or
Oh my God,
there's
always.
this workshop on this. There's this workshop. There's always a webinar to attend. We gotta figure out how to balance it all in a way that works for us. And yes, allow ourselves to sort of flow with it and be guided, while also, being able to know when to put a paddle in and give it some direction, right?
Mm-hmm. And I love this whole analogy between traveling and business. It's really fun. I resonate with it a lot. So thank you so much for sharing that. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else pending that's on your mind? I really want to share about this thing, or we haven't covered this topic yet.
I know that we had sort of original, maybe questions that came up, some of the biggest hurdles, or, learning experiences. I think at the end of the day, maybe even me as someone who does listen to podcasts and these types of topics as well from other creators and entrepreneurs, I love to hear what are the practical things that you were able to do, or what you practiced. And I think so often, especially if we do consider our feelings in business, and sometimes we do have to separate them or put boundaries on them, but working with them is just keep trying. And I tell myself this all the time. I even I'm pretty vulnerable in what I share on social media. I had a whole crying session yesterday. The classic soulpreneur, I don't know what I'm doing, or where is this going? And there's space for that as well. But then tomorrow you still, hopefully, and God willing, you can get up and choose how you want to live your day. You gotta figure out what it is that you really want. Find a way to commit to your conviction and keep trying at it. It's hard. Sometimes it'll be slow. By the way, putting slow and fast on timelines is really our own understanding of what time is. And yeah, we put way too much pressure on that as a society. And even as business owners, because right, there are certain like responsibilities in life. But if you're creating and it's out of passion, it's from your heart, it's something that you just feel like you have to get out and keep doing it any little bit by bit. It's like training for a marathon. At some point, you're going to be ready to run that marathon. Maybe you'll get an injury along the way. Maybe you'll rehab it and be able to still do it. Maybe you'll run a shorter marathon. Like, you can still find ways to do what it is you love to do. Maybe scale it in a way that works for you because you start off with something and it's like way out of your league or way out of your training zone. You can always change your direction, pivot from where you're going. But be patient with all of the spectrum of those emotions. And that's really hard to do, so give yourself some credit.
Beautiful. What a beautiful way to end this. So thank you so much. So please let us know, how can we stay in touch with you? Where can we connect with you further?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to find me because, as I describe, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, I'm always working on something else. But the best way to keep in touch with me is through my main business newsletter called The Flourish Collective. You can find it in my link tree below, and I share bi-weekly sort of practical and tangible ways to work with the feelings that come up in running your own business. I always share 3 ways to sort of put it into practice or maybe even deal with it. I also write a weekly blog called The Tuesday Tingle. So actually we are recording on a Tuesday, so I'm going to be writing that this afternoon. And it's really where I share the things that I can't stop fixating on, in my head, always with a highlight, some wins, and a shout out for the week. And I do also share a playlist of songs from every Tuesday Tingle. Now I've been doing this for over 2 years, so I have over 65 posts on it. And honestly, I'm also very accessible on Instagram at Marta Checko, which I believe should be down below. And lastly, I'll write a great email if you want it. And I prefer to book a call and just gab it out. But if you want to reach me, you can also do so at hi@martachecko.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Marta, for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation. And next time, catch us when we're talking about how we shipped our dogs overseas. Just kidding.
Oh my God, please let's do that. And we could probably put together like a PDF of how, like what to just research, right, depending on where you're going, on which hemisphere. Thank you so much for your time, Andrea. I hope this was helpful to share in a new light. I hope this brought, a little bit of tingle to anyone listening. And I hope they learned something from it. So thank you for sharing your platform and your space with me, as well as exchanging your energy. It was such a lovely, lovely chat with you.
Agreed.